Radio X.
You're listening to X-Posure on Radio X. I'm John Kennedy, and that is Foals with Moonlight. It's the opening song on their brand new album, Everything Not Saved Will Be Lost, Part 1, their 5th record. The second part is coming out later in the year, and I'm very pleased to say that Yannis and Jimmy from Foals are here. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back to Radio X.
Thanks for having us.
Good to be back.
It's great to have you, and it's great to have a new Foals record, I must say. Very excited about this. And Moonlight is a nice, calm way to start proceedings, really, and it does segue beautifully into Exits, but I'm interrupting that beautiful segue by talking to you for a bit. I guess to find out when and where and how and why and what approach you had this time, because you could say on paper 2015 to 2019, 4 years seems like a long time, but you've clearly recorded 2 records and you've also been touring the world and doing all that kind of stuff. So when did you start thinking about recording again?
Well, we finished touring What Went Down, and that had been quite a long, intense tour. So we really felt like it was time to have a bit of domestic time, I guess, or just to have some time to remember what it's like to be a real human being. So we did that for about 7-8 months of not doing any music at all. And for myself, I didn't play any music. I think you were writing a bit, but
yeah,
you were writing quite a lot, actually, weren't you?
Quite a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
Just did sort of bedroom stuff.
Right. So fiddling around with your guitar or using a home studio setup?
A basic home studio setup sort of thing.
Yeah. And where is home these days?
It keeps changing. That was in Germany, but now it's not anymore.
Right, okay. So wherever you were laying your hat, as it were.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we tentatively started getting some bits together. I got a small writing room in Peckham, and certain initial things were written, like the opening bit of Moonlight I had that kind of a fragment of that, the start of Syrups and a few other tracks, and then we went into to just start demoing with an engineer in Peckham, and we wanted to approach it from being in the studio and recording from day one. So that was a different approach for us, and we were only really meant to be there for a couple of weeks, and then we were going to see what was going on, and essentially we set up shop there for over a year with this engineer. We kind of took over his life, and we made the 2 records.
Wow, amazing. So in terms of time, what point, what year?
We took some time off beginning of 2017, played some shows summer 2017, started writing September 2017, started recording November,
and
December-ish, and then finished
a year
September
later.
2018.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So and in a nice relaxed way, because you were living nearby, or you could kind of go there and do whatever you're doing, and because you produced this, Yannis.
Yeah, I mean we produced it. I'd say we didn't use a producer. So
I'll say for the record, Yannis produced it.
Right. Okay.
Very modest.
But you had an engineer. We should name check the engineer.
Brett Shaw. So it's his studio. It's called 123, and he's great. And so this small little writing room I had, which could only fit one person in, is part of his larger studio. But he has a live room and a control room. There's some great gear there, and he was actually recording some stuff with Florence. So that's where we got the idea. We were like, oh, well, once Florence is finished, maybe we can try working with Brett and see what it's like. Because the main desires we had for this record in terms of approach of how to make it was we wanted to make it at home. We wanted to make it in our neighbourhood. We wanted to have time. We didn't want to work to any sort of deadline, have any parameter. We wanted to be as creative as possible, and we wanted to do it essentially on our own with as little external input as possible. And so that's what we did, and the result of that is these 2 records.
Yeah, and we can certainly hear tonight the results speak for themselves. I mean, the tracks we've heard so far sound absolutely fantastic, and it's interesting because you've explored all those kind of options. You've recorded in New York, you've recorded in France, you've potted about in various different places. So this is having had all those experiences, thinking actually, no, we should take charge. We're grown ups now.
Yeah,
we know what we're doing.
Yeah, we nicked
sort of.
Yeah, we've nicked all of the other producers we worked with, their tricks basically, and we know how to employ them. But yeah, I think time was the big one. I think having a sense of freedom basically, and ability to work on something, move away from it, come back to it, and making sure that everything that is going onto the record that we're 100% happy with, and there's no element of being like, oh well, we've got to finish now. And I think that it was a really great learning experience for us.
And it must feel as if you've earned that right to do that and take that approach, you know.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you've got yourselves to a certain position where you can do what you like.
Yeah, it's
great. Which is great.
Yeah.
You know, and that shows hard work pays off.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So with Moonlight as the opening song on this 2-album set, in effect, what did you want to do with Moonlight? You know?
So we felt that it went well into Exits, and there was something about it that is, I mean, the lyrics are dealing with coming out of the past and into the future. So we liked the resonance of it, kind of setting the scene of leaving what's come before, and this is the entry into the new record. I feel like as a piece of music, it's like you're going through the portal into the album, and it acts as a kind of opening of a sonic wormhole or something, like you're going through into the other dimension. And yeah, it just felt like the perfect opener, basically.
Yeah, it has all these lovely squelchy sounds as well. And it's interesting because your voice, Yannis, I think on this record, and there's a hint of it on Moonlight, you know, you're trying out new things, I think, with your voice. You know, there's more of a croon to some of the singing on the new record. Yeah,
I think, I feel like I'm still discovering my voice, really. Like, it's changed a lot, certainly since Antidotes, and you know, the progression with the way that I sing is something that's continually evolving. And I think with this album, I'm singing in a lower register on more tracks, and I'm not straining as much. So I think that's probably where some of that's coming from. But as the music evolves, I want the voice to evolve.
Yeah, well, it certainly does. I think it's really exciting and really interesting because it's almost like sometimes you're tapping into your inner Jim Morrison or something like that, and then you're yelping and doing the high notes as well. No, so it's a nice combination, a nice range.
Yeah. Thank you.
A nice range to play with.
Worked hard. I've treated it well.
Still waiting for the Tom Waits era.
That's coming if I keep on the way I'm going. Yeah.
A few more tours.
Excellent. So as we've said, Moonlight segues beautifully into Exits. There's a nice transition, and Exits was our first taste of this new record. Really exciting because it kind of quite a different kind of sound in a way. You know, the piano, the marimba, and I guess it conjures up Talk to my ears. And obviously, sadly, Mark Hollis just passed away. And I'm assuming Talk have been a reference for you for many, many years.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I think. No, you're absolutely right. That song, we'd fallen in love with "Life's What You Make It" by Talk. Particularly, that was the song that kind of it's one of the songs we put on backstage. We put it on in a rickshaw when we were driving through Atlanta. Right, remember that night? We went to.
Oh no, it wasn't. It was Austin, wasn't it?
Austin. We went to an after party after a festival, on like a cycle rickshaw thing, and we were just. This guy had this ghetto blaster. We were just slamming "Life's What You Make It," cruising through.
I lost my phone in the back seat, so we had to pull his rickshaw apart to get it back.
Oh mate. Yeah. And yeah, so we'd wanted to write what we called a chugger for a while. And "Life's What You Make It" to us is the epitome of a chugger, in the sense of it's just got a groove and it's unrelenting, and there's not really dynamic shifts. It's more just the enjoyment of it is in this kind of solid block of sound. So that was definitely in there when we were writing Exits, and I was struggling with the bass line. We had probably 4 or 5 different bass lines over the course of the year on that song, and we always felt like something wasn't clicking. And towards the last few weeks of recording the album, I was thinking about Talk again and thought, you know what makes Life's What You Make It is the fact that the bass is on a piano. It's on a muted piano. So we took direct inspiration from that, definitely. And it's really sad that Mark Hollis has gone, but they've left behind so much amazing music that there is, and that will live forever. So
yeah, definitely. And lyrically, world upside down. Have I caught that phrase correctly?
Yeah.
I mean, you paint a kind of quite frightening picture if you study the words a bit too hard.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of a frightening time, I guess. With that song, it definitely felt like a visual scene, and I was attracted to an idea of this subterranean world that was slightly surreal and that had these staircases and labyrinths in it, and almost like that we would live in an ant colony for humans type situation. And obviously there's kind of poetic license with it, but I think that there are direct references to the threats that we're facing now, like environmentally. And I'd read an article about all these Silicon Valley billionaires buying up land to build underground bunkers in New Zealand, and I was thinking, isn't that a strange thing that even the richest people in the world, essentially, who have the most power, are that scared that they're going to find the most habitable place in the future and building these strange future forms of houses, and
they're not allowed to do it anymore, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
the government stopped it.
They stepped in and said, no, you rich people, go away.
Yeah.
You can't build tunnels in our land. Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's interesting. So it's a kind of environmental collapse, civilization, disintegration, and we all go to live in tunnels.
Yeah.
Because the outside, the surface of the planet's too inhospitable.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. It's. I think when we talk about it, it sounds bleaker than it is. In the song, I feel like there's a colour to it that is not so, it's not actually as dark as when we discuss it without the music. But I felt like with the music, there's a nice there's a proportionality to the darkness.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's really the story of the album.
Yeah,
because it's that really great contrast between, uplifting music in different kinds of uplifting ways, but then, shades of darkness lyrically, but only if you really pay a lot of attention. Yeah. Which obviously we do pay a lot of attention to the words.
Oh, absolutely,
while we're grooving to the music. And that is the third track on their brand new album, Everything Not Saved Will Be Lost, Part 1. It's just come out. Tonight I'm playing the whole thing with Yannis and Jimmy from the band, talking us through it track by track. And in some ways, White Onions takes us back in time to the early days and the frenetic drum upbeat frenzy that was Foals, and all those amazing shows that you did, where everybody's going crazy.
Yeah.
And it's so great to have that as still part of your armoury, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd definitely. I think when we had the kind of the arpeggiated guitar loop, and the initial loop of it was a little bit more sedate. It was like over a kind of 80s drum machine thing, and then we were jamming it in the room, and obviously Jack just brought this old, the old school energy to 150 BPM, 160 BPM or something, and it clicked instantly in the room. And there's something just gratifying about the physical pleasure of playing something like that. It was like, let's not even question it. Let's keep it simple. Let's just keep it snappy and just let it be this burst of energy. And it was nice to feel that we've reincorporated or just allowed that bit of the DNA of the sound to just be prominent again, in a way that we've veered from that for certain records. So I feel like, I would agree that there's a hark back to the earlier work in that track.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's interesting that Jack brought that to the equation, because obviously so far you've mentioned Jimmy was fiddling around or writing things on his own wherever his hat was, and he was wherever his home was, and you were in Peckham, and then obviously to have the band back together, then that's where the kind of Foals chemistry really comes alive, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah,
definitely.
Yeah,
and I guess it's the four of you now.
Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah, so we definitely had to adapt. We adapted the way that we wrote, it was one of the reasons why we wanted to go into the studio earlier rather than being in a live room, amongst other reasons. But it made it easier to deal with the lack of bass player in a way. And Edwin stepped up to the plate, so he played a lot more bass, and I played some bass. There was a more fluid roles. Our roles in the band became more fluid, I think, which was part of the reason why we feel like we've got this kind of new lease of life, and that things are fresh and exciting. It's partly because we're not in the old structure.
Yeah. This is Foals Mark II.
Yeah,
it is.
It's souped up.
Yeah,
it's got the turbo boost.
Yeah, with new hubcaps, new rims.
Does the bouncing thing that cars do.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I mean, you can hear that on the record really, because there's such a diversity of instrumentation, as there has been, but it's not the unit necessarily that it once was, with clearly demarcated lines of who's doing what, because of the marimba, because of the piano, because of all these things. And because, say, within Degrees, the next song, when that has these kind of heavy bass pulses that I presume come from a keyboard of some kind. And they in contrast to White Onions, they are the kind of other side of Foals in a way, because you've always looked at the dance floor and you've always thought about the dance floor, be it in a house party or in a club, and over time evolved your club chops so well. And In Degrees kind of reflects that, doesn't it? Because it has a housey kind of feel to it.
Yeah, I think it's probably us at our danciest. We've flirted obviously with dance music. We took a lot of inspiration from techno in the early days, but it's always been in our language. And I think that within Degrees we really wanted to take it that little bit further into it being basically as pure a dance track as our band will make. So it felt good, and I think that we've been rehearsing the last few weeks, and that one's going to be great when we play that live. I think that's going to be one of the highlights of the set for sure.
Yeah, well, it's quite a combination, White Onions and In Degrees. There's kind of two sides of this groove monster that is Foals. It's and also, I mean, it's talking about playing live. I mean, White Onions has these great whoa bits that I can imagine will go down really well in a field or in a stadium. And similarly In Degrees, then that's when everybody's kind of got their arms up in the air going crazy. I mean, do you think a lot about that as you're creating these things, or is it only in rehearsal now that you're kind of more aware of it?
No, I think we did think about it when we were writing it.
Definitely with White Onions.
Yeah, definitely White Onions. I think In Degrees now we've got it in a good place. Now we're thinking about it. Sort of like festivals or something.
In Degrees was a bit of a kind of sprawling. It was a bit of a mess basically for most of the time when it was in the studio. It only really came together towards the latter stages, and I think that it because it was all centered around this loop, and we knew that there was something really exciting there, but we didn't know where the song was inside it, and so that one definitely took a bit more work. So. We're just glad that one came together. But yeah, White Onions we knew was going to be a slammer. I think you're totally right then, this thing about the instrumentation where we wanted to deconstruct this feeling of everything being through a rock band or a guitar band template. And because we were working on textures and the recording from such an early stage, it just meant that we viewed the whole album as something where we could express musical ideas, but we had everything at our disposal. We had like marimbas, vibraphones, all sorts of synths and percussion, and it just meant that it's identifiably Foals, but it's being translated through different or a richer sonic palette in a way.
Yeah, and there's no clear line as to who does what, or hang on a minute, I'm meant to be doing that bit. It's just whoever happens to be on that instrument or fiddling about. But I mean, which must have a great creative effect on you all, and quite freeing, really.
I was reading a lot about Talk actually. Because obviously Mark died, and apparently they were a bit like that as well. Like when they're in the studio, like people were just sort of allowed to do whatever, and then they'd keep on doing it until something good happened, and then they'll be like, right, let's go with that. But there were no like strict lines of like, it's like doesn't really make sense to kind of restrict musicians like that. I guess like there's no reason why a guitar player can't play the drums or the recorder or whatever it may be.
Yeah, totally. And lyrically, White Onions and In Degrees, I mean, how do you see these songs?
They're quite different. I think that with White Onions, I just had this view of this maze, and I think that's kind of a repeated theme through the album, is like labyrinths and mazes, and I wasn't really aware at the time why I was attracted to that image in a recurring way, but I think that now I've got some space from it. I wonder if it's about confusion and trying to find ways to solve problems or ways out of situations. But White Onions is super simple lyrically, and it's just I wanted the lyrics to reflect the guitar line in the fact that it's this repeated pattern, and in the same way a maze is kind of a pattern. And for it to be claustrophobic. In Degrees is a different beast, really. It started off as a song essentially about the the slow disintegration of a relationship and the difficulty in communication, and how it's easy for communication to lapse, and how much that can erode something. And then obviously the phrase in degrees, which was there from right at the beginning, started thinking about degrees and Celsius, and whether there could be a second, deeper meaning that's more broad and is hinting at our relationships in general, but also with the outside world, with each other, so like in society, and also maybe even towards the environment in some way.
Yeah, and how maybe, just in margins, it only takes a few degrees for things to be changed,
totally.
be that in a personal level or another.
Yeah, it's a small shift of the dial, and you end up somewhere totally different. I definitely was, with that one, I was attracted to this idea of the song being about isolation, or increasing isolation, or this feeling of being that you're not part of a community, and that human contact is being eroded, but then knowing that the song itself hopefully will bring thousands of people together in a dance floor on a field, and it's going to be a sweaty communal moment of real communication and real human contact. So I kind of like the fact that the lyrics are cold and glassy and isolated, but the actual song is going to be this sweating, heaving thing.
Unifying.
Yeah,
fantastic. I love that idea. And Syrups takes us in another direction entirely with this brilliant walking, strolling bass line that just sounds fantastic. And two completely different references came to my mind. For some reason I was thinking about Fleetwood Mac, but also maybe some of the stretched out songs on Sandinista by The Clash, which is a kind of strange kind of combination in a way. Although I know that Lindsey Buckingham was always kind of impressed by The Clash and what was happening in punk and post-punk, and that was part of the struggle within Fleetwood Mac, was that he wanted to bring in these new elements that he felt were around and happening in rock music, and some of the other people were a bit more resistant to it.
It is Simonon-esque, that bass. I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah.
Who came up with that one?
That's Yannis.
Right.
Yeah, that was presented to us. Like basically, like the whole first half of that song you did
on Logic,
pretty much, apart from like the drums and stuff.
Right.
I learned how to use Logic for the first, or like a computer program basically for the first time, because I've been a bit of a Luddite with recording up until now. So that was one of the first things I managed to record. I had the pad and the drum loop, and then just put the bass line over and played it to the guys backstage at a festival that we were playing in the summer of 2017. And we'd had a few Chandons or whatever. We had a few drinks after this show, and we were listening to it, and I felt like it was something that felt new for us, and that it got us excited about the next phase.
Yeah, we were just like, oh my god, great.
Yeah, that's
one
really
song
good.
done.
Yeah. So, and you had that as a recording, so you could, it wasn't as if you were just sharing this idea while you're all having a few drinks, and it kind of disappeared.
No, it's actually the basis of the album. The first half of the album is essentially that. I don't think we even re-recorded the bass on the first half. No. It's the original bit, but there's obviously other stuff on top of it, the vocals and the extra drums and bits of keys and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, we just felt like it had this kind of swagger, and then and obviously, like a few songs on this record, it has a split personality. It flips halfway through, and that was something where that's the idea being presented into the band, into the live room, and it being mauled and transformed by the four of us jamming it, essentially.
Right.
That's where it gets ruined.
Yeah. I don't know, it's
the
a great
purity
change,
of Yannis's ideas.
But then there's that nice kind of guitar solo just before that transition, isn't there? There's a kind of
slightly Balkans.
Yeah.
I think about it's quite Balkans.
That one, yeah, Snake Charmer.
Yeah. I think that sounds great. And then it completely changes and goes all motoric.
Yeah.
It goes as noi. In a way. Which is fantastic, and again the vocal has another dimension. That's a bit Jim Morrison, I think, on this one in parts.
Yeah, I'd not thought about Jim Morrison at all, but that's interesting.
Well, we always bring our own references, so maybe
he liked whiskey too, right?
I think he did.
Yeah,
but there's some interesting words that I've kind of caught in Syrups that I need to work out whether. You mentioned paper round, is that right? You mentioned a paper round, and then you mentioned London and Oxfordshire. Is that
London and Oxford shirts?
Oxford shirts, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I latched onto the Oxford,
Yeah.
and turned it into the county.
Yeah, no, it's getting dirt on an Oxford shirt.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely wanted that. You know, where we live in South London, it's like all over London, but there's tons of foxes everywhere, and would walk back late at night sometimes to my house after the studio, or just in that period when we were writing. I'd written some lines separately, like sort of a bit of a poem about foxes and the bricks in London, all the Victorian old railway arches, and how there's this kind of haunting quality to them, and then envisaging a future which is kind of happening, where jobs are being replaced by AI, and it's like AI, foxes, old Victorian grandeur, and that there's no kids on BMXs doing paper rounds anymore, and that's just the kind of world that I felt fit the mood of the song. So
Yeah. Did you do a paper round?
I didn't actually
No.
do a paper round, no, but I had a lot of friends that did.
Yeah,
Fun
yeah.
day times.
Yeah, well, that is an important thing. They often funded record collections or
Yeah.
instruments or whatever important things you want to spend your paper round money on.
Yeah.
Fundamental step in life's big adventure. Into the foxes are amazing. I mean, they keep trying to get in our house at the moment. It's almost like they're knocking on the door saying, right, I'm coming in now to have a look at your bin.
I think it's amazing.
Getting more confident.
Yeah, they are. They're brazen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool that there's something so wild in a city like this, you know, that you can be in, like, next to they're just, I don't know, I like them.
Yeah, no, they
beautiful.
are. I mean, they kind of make me laugh. A few years back, I remember parking the car around the corner from the house and walking back to the house, and there was a little gang of foxes sitting on a wall and kind of lying in front of this other house, and it was almost like they were smoking cigarettes and going, no, eyeing me up to assess me, and I'm like, will we take him or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the modern environment we live in.
Yeah.
And from syrups, why syrups?
It just because the bass line felt syrupy,
Right.
felt like scissor.
Yeah, fantastic. From syrups to On the Luna, which was, I guess, our second taste of this new record.
Yeah.
And so what's happening here? There's this lovely shimmering quality to On the Luna, I think. Kind of a shimmering alt rock, possibly.
It's very upbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one, a bit like White Onions, where we kind of wanted to keep it simple and keep it, make it effervescent and make it kind of exciting and not kind of overthink it, and just let it be a great feeling song. I think some of that is about, letting the lyrics do the kind of the mind stuff, and then letting the music just be viscerally enjoyable. But that was there was a riff that was hanging around since What Went Down, and it had got edited out of whatever song it was part of back then, and we kind of revisited it, and it just felt really fun, and kind of nods back to this math rock, because it's in a strange time signature and there's some strange cross rhythms in it and stuff, and we just thought it was it's like I think because we're 5 records in, we're excited by things that maybe we did 10 years ago that we haven't, not that we were consciously looking to the past, but I think that we enjoy aspects of things that only we can do, that maybe we were bored of doing for a while, and it's like about revisiting some of that and going, actually, this way that we play, and not many people play in that way, and it's something that's unique to us, we should enjoy it and revel in it and not over question it, not necessarily pick it apart. So I think that's one of those songs where it's just kind of us at our freest, or just at our most carefree, probably.
Yeah. Kind of getting back to your roots, and to what made you who you are in many ways, and then contrasting that, as you say, with some interesting lyrics. And there was one that stood out: we had it all and we didn't stop to think about it. Now, who are the we in question?
All of us, really.
Yeah, we're throwing it away.
Yeah.
In degrees, as it were.
Yeah. Very good.
But
I use that. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, feel free. Cafe d'Athens.
Yeah.
It stumbled into this kind of almost French way of saying Athens.
Yeah.
But then is there a Greek way of saying Athens in a particular?
Oh, it's called Athena.
Right, okay.
No, they don't call it Athens, but Athena.
But you didn't think of having Cafe
Athena. Well, that could have been cool. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't.
Like, kind of cause some friction with the community back home.
Yeah.
And the marimba returns. Is it a marimba or vibraphone?
It's marimba. The marimba does the main pattern, and vibraphone does the little airy touches over the top, the little seagull wings.
Yeah, the seagull wings. What a great description. So, are you thinking of a particular place? Is Cafe d'Athens in Peckham?
No, it's not
Not yet.
No, yeah,
You could open it.
after album 6. Time to open up. Yeah. Souvlaki and Greek coffee joint. Yeah, the title is probably misleading. I think it's probably like what's that when you give somebody a bad clue, like a kind of
Red herring.
Yeah, I guess a red herring. Other than that, yeah, this is another kind of result of a slightly botched experiment on using computer software, and I did it on the plane on the way to Athens, and that was the working title because I was headed. I spend a lot of time in cafes in Athens when I go, or cafes in Greece generally. But then the landscape that's in the song, in the lyrics, kind of ties in with Moonlight. In Moonlight, there's black horses, and in Cafe d'Athens, there's white horses on the hills and stuff. And the lyrics are definitely inspired by Greece and about the landscape in Greece. It's probably the most abstract song lyrically. I feel like it's the one that probably defies the general themes of the album in some way, except for the end. But yeah, it was a song that was kind of I don't know. It was worked on in Paris actually quite a lot. I was spending some time with some guys in Paris, and the marimba was a software marimba, and then they played it, in real terms. And Jack put the sort of slightly sharp tooth British breakbeat on it.
Breakbeat.
Yeah, which we were into. But yeah, there's definitely been a bit of a Frankenstein.
I contributed probably the most important second of guitar ever recorded.
Yeah, Jimmy had a whole guitar part that ran through the entire track, and it got edited down to just one.
It's like,
boing.
Yeah, it's not even a second, but it's great.
It's a great touch.
Yeah.
Is there a sense of loss when that happens?
I like that more than what I actually did.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is probably why this is how it ended up.
Yeah, I heard it, I was like, fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got such a great rhythm, Cafe d'Athens. But yeah, I do like the idea of it existing in some physical form at some point.
Oh, what? Yeah.
Like you wouldn't have to run it.
Maybe
You could be the sort. You could be
pop-up
you'd be this sort of eccentric owner that could turn up and sort of
take the
have
free
lock-ins. Yeah, just free drinks all around.
Yeah, and then go away, and then they'll shut down probably 6 months later.
So the next track is Surf Part 1, and obviously the album is Everything Not Saved Will Be Lost Part 1. So Part 2 is coming out in the autumn. Is there Surf Part 2 on the second album?
Yeah.
And tell us about this 2-part album concept or approach or idea.
Well, that's one of the ways we've linked them together, I think.
Yeah, there isn't a track called Surf Part 2 on Part 2.
No. There's another song. It alludes to another song.
Right, okay, so it connects.
Yeah, it's like a sort of bastardized version of the song on the second album. But it's like, we love all that stuff when you do listen to long albums, and potentially after the second one's out, people will maybe listen to it all in one go, or
so.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they did just once, just to see if they could survive it.
Yeah.
But I like it when themes repeat. And you kind of forget that you've heard something, and then it forces home the whole cyclical nature of like a double album or whatever it may be, and gives it like a concept. I don't know, like a sonic concept, which is kind of what that one's for, really.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, I was going to say that we put that in there partly because we were sequencing. We had quite a big job of sequencing the 2 records and making sure that they had their own journeys that were good and felt complete. So we wanted them to feel obviously as complete records individually, but that there was symmetry and proportion between the 2. And we felt that there was something missing on album 1. And then when Surf, I was doing mixing up playlists to try and find the best order. And that slotted in then. It was just like, that just perfects the kind of curve of the second half. So, and then it has this playful link to part 2. It was quite a job doing we didn't go into the studio expecting to do 2 records. So it was definitely towards the latter stages where, when everything was completed, we were like, we've got 20 pieces of music. What are we going to, and all of them need to be heard. And if you edit it down, you don't get the complete picture. But at the same time, we didn't want to just like deliver some behemoth, overwhelming Dickens novel of an album. And
it was way too much for one listen, definitely.
So I think that we've definitely done it in the right way, and I think the records have different characteristics. They definitely have a fairly different vibe to them, but they form a bigger whole. Like you, in my mind, you only get to the end of the album at the end of the last track of part 2.
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. And Jimmy, you said if anybody could survive listening to the 2 albums in sequence, but what can we expect from part 2? Is it a similar sound palette to part 1?
No, not really.
It's quite different.
Quite different. I'd say there's more guitars on it in the sort of traditional sense. There's some songs which are quite heavy. There's the last song which is over 10 minutes long. That's kind of that was a great experiment for us, because in doing these 2 albums, it gave us more space to have like a 10-minute song. Like if it was just a normal 10-track album, that would never have existed, or it would have been like 3.5 minutes long, or maybe 5 if we're lucky. And so we got to actually do like proper improv.
Yeah,
there's like, I don't know, 4 minutes of just like us just sort of not wigging. I wouldn't describe it as wigging out,
it's
but
proper jam.
Yeah, and like that's what's on the record, and it's not edited or anything, and it's cool, and it takes you on a journey, the same journey we went on, I think. So it's that's the end of the last song, and I think it is different from the first one.
Fantastic.
Just trying to remember what's on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can't
Definitely
wait to
different.
hear it.
We're mixing it at the moment, and the more I listen to it, I'm like, I don't think we realised how different it is, but it's definitely it's different. But it's good.
It's good though.
It's great.
It's good too.
It might be better. I think I might prefer it actually.
Wow.
Really?
Wow. Interesting. And this is just going to give us a little taste of it, possibly, part 1. And Sunday is the penultimate song of part 1. We've already talked a little bit about part 2. Sunday starts in a very tranquil way, doesn't it? And almost conjuring up the ideal Sunday feel, which seems kind of to match the title in some ways. That certainly struck me. And then, I mean, it's really interesting by the time it finishes, because you can really imagine this, as we were talking about earlier on, being performed live and being performed in front of a massive crowd of people, and those woes being picked up by those people and sung in unison, in this wonderful united moment. Did you think about that? Were you aware of that? Did you think, we've struck gold here?
We had to do a lot of digging before.
Yeah, that song was,
before we got there.
Yeah, that song was difficult. It's been it's been through. There's been so many forms of the song as well. But we feel like when this version clicked, and we were like, okay, this is it, and it's going to finally make it, because it was a song that was kind of knocking around during What Went Down, and that got shelved basically, and we just felt that there was unfinished business. And actually, it's good that it wasn't on What Went Down, because lyrically certainly and sonically it's just more. I think that there was somebody telling us like, it's not for this record, like save it and it'll make more sense later down the line. But yeah, we like the idea of, again, this song flipping from the languid, laid back feel, and then having a surprise in it. And definitely, I think, it's a song where you can imagine people dancing to it, and for it to be, I feel like the colour scheme of it is like one of those ice cream sunset, and you're in an English field, and there's sort of horseflies biting you every now and then, but
covered
it's
in nettles.
Yeah, it's got that kind of, there's just something euphoric about it. It's definitely a song for the summer.
Yeah. I mean, it's that transition when it goes kind of all ravey, and then when it transitions again and you calm things down again. Yeah, it's really exciting and kind of surprising. Because you, especially the first part, you think, I know, great.
I know where this is going.
Yeah, this is nice. I like this.
Don't get too comfortable. Kind of thing.
Excellent. But again, I mean, the lyrics, cities burn. Is it? Is that one of the phrases? And but it's about youth, isn't it? It's about celebration of.
Yeah, there's an optimism in it in a way. I feel like, it's about youth. It's about the future, and I guess I don't feel like I fully know what it's about yet. I feel like, but yeah, it's about youth, and it's about the future, and it's about making changes probably, but also enjoying being young and enjoying being alive. And I just wanted it to feel ecstatic and euphoric, but also the backdrop of destruction and wreckage in there, but that maybe it's okay if you're with the right group of people.
Right. And yes, in contrast to that, I'm Done With The World and It's Done With Me is the closing song on the new Foals album. And this strips everything down again, really, to piano and voice. And this closes the first part of this 2-album release for Foals in 2019. This, you were talking about the sequencing of the record. And so part 2 ends with this big 10-minute jam thing. This ends with a sense of disquiet, or
I think again in the sequencing, it felt this was quite a hard song to put into the. It had a different place in the album. I think it was also on part 2 for a while, and then it moved on to part 1 when we were sequencing, and then it was somewhere else, and then again, kind of at the last minute, it was like, oh, hang on, actually, maybe if we put it at the end, it feels more magical. And it makes the record arrive in this destination that then album 2 can contrast against. And I think that definitely in terms of the journey through the album, you know, if you go from songs like White Onions and In Degrees, when you end up in this place that's resigned and fragile and stark, and there's something filmic about the song. I felt like Jimmy sent the chords over. The music, Jimmy basically, you'd done it all, right? And it was fully formed.
That's one of my tinkerings in Germany.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you sent it over to me, and I went and did the vocals separately. I was in London, and it was before we were actually working on the album, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, it was on our downtime.
Yeah, and then the lyrics, you know, are kind of dark, I guess. And there's foxes. You know, it was written on a very specific day. There was actually a fox in my garden that was wounded. And there was something about the way the chords made me feel like instantly I was just like, this is perfect. We don't need, you know, this is great. And there's sometimes like Jimmy will send me a piece of music and I'll just know that it resonates and I can sing over it straight away. And the lyrics just came fully formed that day, and it's not changed since. We haven't done, all the lyrics were there on that first day, and it just feels incredibly visual. It feels like a cliffhanger, and that. I like this idea that it's like almost an out-of-body experience of you're watching this scene and the singer's floating above himself almost, and then the album kind of ends in this ghostly, kind of defeated place, I guess, in a way.
Musically, it was kind of, I'm trying to write a concept album about about a cosmonaut that gets lost in space, and that was like the first song I did for it, but. And then it was like the idea of like you're sort of floating above the earth, and it's really, really beautiful, and obviously quite sad because you know you're buggered. But then you're floating through all like the static and the noise that like surrounds the world, like all the radio waves and stuff, and then you just pop through the other side, and that's that. Wow, yeah,
amazing. I'm really excited about hearing this next part as well. In contrast to what we've just been listening to.
Yeah.
It sounds fantastic, and the idea of thinking that it's going to be different again is really exciting. But it's been fantastic to have you here, giving us the lowdown on it, and we will see you soon in the autumn. Let's do part 2.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Really exciting.
Radio X.